Hello everyone, my name is Carl Don Stover. This is my Module 14 case study. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with Category 1A. What do I know? Slattery Steno High School is one of the most prestigious schools in the state. It's in an area that is very financially stable. A lot of the parents are like lawyers, doctors, or work for different investment firms. So their lifestyle is, very stable. They have really nice houses, great yards, great landscaping. They are able to afford their kids, the nicest and newest technology, the newest and nicest clothes, and so on and so forth. At this school system, we have our principal, Dr. Harvey Smith. He's a veteran principal. He's been there for 9 years. A couple years ago, he was named Principal of the Year. He is very established in his principalship, and he's very proud of the school system he has, and takes a lot of pride in it. Miss Robin Tate is a new hire last year. She teaches a lot of specialized science courses like botany, genetics, zoology, so very much upper level science classes. She is highly educated. She has her undergraduate degree or master's degree, and she's already 1 year into her doctorate degree. She really values a structured type classroom with a focus on academics. She's a very serious teacher, and she actually makes it a really high stress load for students who come into her class. She has found that parents and students have started to complain about her stringent expectations. There's a whole bunch of high achievers who take their class who are fighting for that valedictorian spot, and they're getting their first bad grades ever, which is kind of a shot right to the heart when you're a great student. Dr. Smith have given her some ways to better connect with the students to kind of decrease their stress, help them actually learn a little bit better, and also increase her positive interactions with them so she can start, building a better teacher-student bond. After talking to her, Miss Tate is still getting a lot of complaints about the workload and poor instruction. We then go kind of to year 2 in this situation. Miss Tate goes for a 3-day weekend over Veterans Day. She goes home, visits her parents, kind of catch up with them. And then when she gets back to her apartment, she has an unidentified email that comes through. And it says, you need to check out this website. And so she does, like any curious person. And she finds a website that is attacking her both personally and the way she teaches. There's tons of bad comments, very negative comments, and actually some very threatening comments. Like, who wants Miss Tate to disappear? So almost like a death threat here. Miss Tate calls the principal, tells him that somebody's threatened to kill her over this website. Principal finally gets her calmed down enough to get the website from her. He goes and looks, and he kind of sees it as a place where there's a vindictive student in the play here. A student is angry. They have created this to try to get back at Miss Tate. He asked her to think of all the students that maybe have been angry at her, and she says William Hall. William is a student that maybe gives her a lot of snide comments, talks behind her back, is very clever in his ways. He kind of makes fun of her, is very disruptive, and he's computer savvy as he helps a lot of his friends. The principal goes ahead and prints hard copies of both her email and that page that has been put up about her. And he states that in the morning they're going to speak with Williams and his friends about the website, and that they're going to have the district technologist figure out where the email came from. Miss Tate decides to stay at her parents' house. I don't blame her. That's probably what I would do too. So next, what do I need to know? I think these are the 8 things that I would love to know in this situation if I was the principal. Number 1, I want to know a list of students with a C grade or lower in Mrs. Tate's class. I feel like all of them, because they're high-achieving students, that they could possibly have a vendetta against Mrs. Tate. After seeing that list, I think I want to have a list of all the students or parents Miss Tate has had complaints filed on her by. That could have been to me, other administrators like a vice principal, or Miss Tate herself that she's got negative feedback from. Next up, I want to know where that email originated from. I want to know who sent it. Whether it was a concerned citizen or whether it was a person trying to get, put the needle in the haystack. Okay. Next up, the exact time of the publishing of the website and who owns the page. This is something that you can find out, who promoted and started the page. Next, I want to know the exact laws which have been broken by the threats and slander against Miss State. And I also want to know what school policies these actions violate. I think we have to look at this at both the school policy standpoint and for the fact that Miss Tate felt threatened, like a death threat. I need to know what criminally wise or civilly wise this could be prosecuted against, and if the school is going to be liable or not. Next, I want to look at all those comments on that website and see if any student name or parent name was attached to it. And next, I want to make sure I understand all the legal and school ramifications that this could really make happen. So I think there are 3 big problems in this situation. Number 1, Miss Tate has had complaints from parents and students in her class. This is a problem. We need to make sure we address it as well. 2, Dr. Smith has tried to help Miss Tate, but we're not seeing that help, really go anywhere. And then problem 3 is Miss Tate does get a very threatening email that bashes her personally and her teaching methods, which is a problem. So here's my plan of action, and this is actually going to take 2 slides. Number 1, I think Miss Tate needs to be in my office first thing in the morning, and we need to discuss how she's doing, how she's feeling, if she's thought of any other names, if she has any other concerns, if she feels like she has to watch her back. I want to know how she's doing because I should care about her as a person, as I'm her principal. She's one of my workers, one of my teachers. I need to care about her as a person and make sure she's doing okay. 2, I want to print out that grade list for everybody in Mrs. Tate's class. I want to know that information. Next, I want to print out of all the parents and students that I have gotten messages from, and then how those messages were stated. If they were an email, letter, or phone conversation forum, I want to have record of them. Next up, I want Mrs. Tate to write down any names or documentation via email, letters, or anything like that from angry parents, disgruntled students, or anything. I want the documentation. Next, that technology specialist, I'm going to call him or her in and do a research on that email and the website, and let's try to find out more about it. After I kind of get all my ducks in a row, I do want to start researching William Hall. I call him in, talk to him, see what he knows about the situation, see if he's going to talk to me or not. Next, call William's friends in, explain the situation to him, and see what they have to say. Next, let's call any disgruntled student that has a problem with her in. It's amazing, once we start talking about problems and punishments, a lot of times students squeal. There's going to be something, well, such and such said, I heard they did this, and that gives us a little more leeway to start poking and prodding on that student. Also, I want to see what that tech director or technology specialist finds out. Next up, when we get to kind of the more guilty parties, I want to start calling parents of those parties, and I also want to bring the superintendent in and kind of talk to him about the issue before we really go down to punishment lane. Next, I want to see if that website can be taken down, but I still want to keep a digital copy of it because I want proof that it did exist and that it was very negative. Next up, I want to follow school policy on how to punish the guilty parties. We need to research school policies and find out exactly what pertains to this. Next up, let's check with the school lawyer about further problems and what needs to be passed down to the police, if anything. I think this is important because Miss Tate could definitely take this on further if she wanted to as a civil action against somebody slandering her. Or as a threat action, as did that last comment would have creeped me out too. 14, I want to make sure Mrs. Tate is becoming a better teacher. I want to work with her one-on-one, give her positive examples, and actually go in and check on her and do some walkthroughs. 15, let's look at our technology policies, make them more comprehensive and complete. And 16, I think we need to talk to all the student body about proper computer usage and punishment procedures and how Acting out like this and creating something like this and having this on your records could affect them in the workplace and whether they get hired or not at a place that they want to be in. Strategies for implementation. This is going to take a lot of communications on my part with students, adults, administrators, other teachers, anybody and everybody that's dealing with this conversation. I need to do a school and legal policy check, so I'm going to have to be up to date on my verbiage. I need to know the violations of students and teachers' rights and pertaining to this issue. I need to keep constant contact with students and adults that are associated with this, and I really need to work with Ms. Tate on some teaching strategies to use in her classroom. Next up, what is best for the students? I'm a big person, if students mess up and they did something like this, they need to be found guilty and they need to, if we found them guilty, they admit to this crime, they need to be punished the way our policy book says they need to be. I don't like sugarcoating it. They need to know that in the real world, there's punishment if you do something wrong. Okay. Other students need to be informed of the wrongdoings and the punishments that apply to it. Because if they don't understand there's a problem, then we've got a bigger issue at play. They need to learn from other people's mistakes. Students need to know the ramifications this could have in the workplace and if they did this to their boss. Okay, this would be a big no-no to do to your boss. I think a policy update needs to happen so we have a broader sense of technology jargon and the problems that could occur and a better way to address these problems. Ms. Tate needs more support. She needs more assistance into making herself a well-rounded teacher. I think she needs to turn her lesson plans into me as the principal, and we have a conversation. I review them, I give her feedback, then I do some walkthroughs with her classroom every week, and then we do a weekly debrief until she starts getting back on her feet or kind of finding her way as a teacher. If I'm not seeing any improvement by Ms. Tate, maybe this isn't the place for her, especially being in such a prestigious school with such high standards. That's a concept we have to take into thought. So some resolutions here. Punishment for guilty parties, that must happen. We need to update school policy and a more hands-on approach with struggling teachers. My feelings. You can probably tell that I'm pretty jazzed about this. I really think this student probably didn't understand the full picture of what making that website was going to do. They probably thought it was a joke, but it wasn't a joke. It was pretty serious, especially with the threat. This teacher, they didn't deserve this. Even if they're struggling, even if they're not the best teacher in the whole world, they don't deserve that. Nobody deserves that, okay? Students have to be held accountable for their actions. They're going to be in the real world. They need to be in school, okay? I have to support both my teacher and my student body if faced with this problem. I can't just side with one. Myself, school lawyers, and upper administration must all be hands on deck when making this solving this problem. I truthfully believe that this was a blatant attack, whether it was intentional or unintentional. Ms. Tate could take this to civil or criminal court, and that would be up to her decision, but I have to make sure that the school has their back covered, that we did everything for her. A question I would have for the student is, was this really worth doing all over a grade you didn't agree with? I'd be curious to what they would have to say. So here's category 5. Here's how I thought I acted with integrity. I followed policy. I got feedback from other administrators, informed all parties, both students, teachers, and parents, and I fully researched and sought out the prominent proof of the incident. I didn't just, see one little thing and went with it. Okay, I did a lot of research. Component 2, fairness. I treated all guilty parties the same. If it was one kid, and then there was other people who were in on it too, all of them need to be punished the way our policies state. I understand that students were upset, and I looked for some ways to help Mrs. Tate in the classroom. And at the end, I stated that I wanted to call students together to speak to them about technology issues and what harms it could have on them in the workplace in their future. The last thing here is acting in an ethical manner. I really looked at the policy book and wanted to stay policy oriented. I consulted my administration and school lawyer, and I did the research on the guilty of the issue. Thank you and have a great night.